Today we're going to talk about starters and finishers. These are terms that I've actually heard used quite a bit in the video game industry. Let me talk about what they mean and also how they can be useful on your project. I'm going to speak in extremes for this video, but I think it's worth a caveat up front. Most people are not purely in one camp or the other. This is more of a spectrum than it is a binary state. So if you feel like your motivations fall in one camp or another, and you feel like maybe I am deriding you with my descriptions, I apologize for that, but I would say that what I'm doing is I'm describing almost platonic ideals of each of these kinds of people, and that most of us fall somewhere in the middle with an ability to both start and finish things. But I do think for the purposes of clarity and this video, I'm going to speak as if these two motivations are diametrically opposed. Okay, one more caveat. I am a finisher, quite a strong finisher. I believe that I am parsing the motivations of starters correctly, but I don't understand them fully. So as a result, I'm sure I'm making some mistakes. Let me know down in the comments if you disagree with the things that I am saying. A starter is someone who is motivated by starting things. When they look at a blank sheet of paper, they immediately want to start filling it up with stuff so that they can make new things. The act of creation is easy to begin for them. Conversely, a finisher is someone who likes to finish things. When they have a mostly completed task, the most motivating thing for them is to bring that task to completion. When they look at a blank sheet of paper, they see something complete because it is in a stable state, and the easiest thing for them to do is to leave it there. You need both starters and finishers on your project. Starters are the people who are going to begin new things, to push for improvement, to bring change to your project. They are very strong at the beginning of the project where there's a lot of blank paper, and their scribbles and their notes can help to give shape to something that doesn't really exist yet. Finishers are who get you over the finish line. They take things to completion. They consider the end point of different tasks. Extreme starters can have difficulty finishing anything because as they bring a task along, they can become bored with it and wander away from it in this half-completed state. Depending on the person, this could result in something that is essentially useless because you could end up with a system that is really interesting, but so incomplete and in such a rough state that it's not even possible to hand it over to someone else to finish it. I've worked with people like this. One of the strongest programmers that I've worked with in my career was almost 100% a starter. And the trick was to accept that he was going to make things and then wander away from them in this sort of 60% state. And if you could find things where that was okay, then you were golden. But if you couldn't, then you ended up, unfortunately, with a system that someone else was going to have to take over, and often it was in a state that wasn't particularly maintainable. Finishers, on the other hand, really strong finishers, can have a lot of difficulty starting anything because they're sort of seeking this stable state of having things finished. As often happens with this first cup of tea series, I think I'm arriving at a conclusion that's slightly different than the one I started out with. I actually am now wondering if, rather than the starters being motivated by starting things and the finishers being motivated by finishing things, if it isn't more of an avoidant behavior where starters are avoiding finishing things because it requires them to be done and to set it down and to open it to scrutiny, whereas finishers are avoiding starting things because that means new tasks and new things that they have to pay attention to and do. Obviously, because I'm literally doing this in the edit bay. This is fairly half-baked, but I'll throw it out here in the middle of this video. I'm a finisher. I'm quite a strong finisher, and yeah, it can be difficult to start things. Maybe rather than start things, you look for other things to do that you can finish more easily. Maybe you start a YouTube channel so that you can finish a whole bunch of videos rather than working on something else. Now, obviously, I'm speaking in fairly extreme ways here. As with all sort of corporate horoscope things, the reality is something in the middle. Most people aren't 100% starters or 100% finishers. And most people have the ability to shift their stance a little bit depending upon the culture of the project, the phase of the game, the messaging that they're getting from the people around them. But it's worth understanding your particular inclination and also understanding the inclination of some of the people around you on your team. A lot of these horoscope style, personal people division things aren't particularly useful because they are highly dependent upon the situation. And this is true for whether you're a starter or a finisher as well. But for most things within your day-to-day job, your situation is going to be relatively similar. So while you may not be able to predict whether someone's a starter or a finisher in their personal life, by observing the way they behave in their professional life, you can be relatively accurate in terms of the way they're going to behave on this spectrum in their professional life. So this allows you to at least have a prediction of what they're going to do. So does this mean that you want all starters at the start of your project and all finishers at the end of your project? I would argue that that's absolutely not what you want. You want a mixture of both of these personality types throughout your development. You may want to weight more heavily to starters at the beginning, and you may want to reduce your starter population at the end, but you want there to be voices from these camps all the way along, because even in the final stages of your project, your starters are the ones that are going to be pushing for small features that might be worth doing even as you're finaling. They're the ones that are going to be looking forward at the DLC and the live service, while the finishers are just trying to get this thing in a box. So you need those voices even as you're trying to land the project. At the start of the project, you want finishers because they're the ones that bring a little bit of pragmatism to the conversation and remind people that eventually this 9 million square mile open world MMO with playable equipment has to actually ship, and that you can't do everything. And if you start everything, then you don't finish anything. Over-segregation can lead to a couple of different cultural problems. If you only have starters at the beginning of your project, they can start to feel like they're the creative forces behind your games, and that the finishers who come in to ship the game are just the worker bees who don't have any creative spark and are nothing more than guns for hire. On the flip side, if you have nothing but finishers at the end of the project, the finishers feel like they're constantly putting out other people's fires, and they lose a sense of ownership over the resulting product. And certainly I can say that as someone who spent the later half of my career landing a lot of other people's airplanes, that's definitely a true thing. You start to feel like your influence on the product is limited and that you're just there to land someone else's plane. That's not what you want from someone who's shipping your game. Similarly, the starters can lose a sense of ownership as well because they're on at the start, and then by the time the thing comes out, all of those great ideas that they came up with at the beginning have been lost, both because of creative ideas that come in from the other parts of the team, but also because the realities of shipping forced sacrifices to be made. But they weren't there to hear those sacrifices, so they don't understand why their great idea was thrown away. So you want people from both the starter camp and the finisher camp throughout your development, because I think it leads to better team cohesion, and you want to hear from them. So for both reasons, I think it leads to a better end result. So what do you do if you're a finisher and you need to be on the beginning of a project? I have some tricks that I use as a finisher to try to help me get started. I suspect that starters similarly have strategies they use in order to finish things. One of the strategies that I use is to treat things as larger tasks. So rather than having to start a YouTube video twice a week, every week, for me, it's more about finishing 100 videos. And it's a trick, obviously, because I still have to get over a starting road bump at the beginning of each video. But by treating the group more as a larger set, it sort of tricks my brain into treating it as a larger task that I'm finishing, as opposed to a whole bunch of small tasks that I'm starting, if that makes any sense. As I mentioned, this is a continuum. People will fall all over the place on this continuum. I've worked with people who were able to almost effortlessly shift from being starters to being finishers. Most people, I would argue, can't do that. That even when they're in a different phase, even when they're trying to work in a different way, a starter trying to act as a finisher trying to act as a starter, they're doing it within the context of the way they prefer to work. For me, at the beginning of a project, even though we're starting, I'm doing that through the lens of a finisher. And I can trick myself and use various strategies to not constantly be trying to just finish things, to not ignore the blank sheet of paper, but it is still within that context. As with any of these corporate horoscopes, starters and finishers as sets can be problematic and can get you into trouble if you overuse it. I do think it's useful to at least understand some of the preferential ways that your people like to work. Special thanks to my members. They help keep this channel running. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a link down in the description. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. That will let more people see it. If you find this kind of thing interesting, let me know down in the comments, and I will think about some other videos of similar topics that I can do. I will see you again soon. Thank you.